Let's bring in Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, key member of the Armed Services Committee, a vocal critic of the Obama administration's handling of Benghazi and what happened there. Senator, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
You're threatening now, this is a big deal, to hold up, correct me if I'm wrong, every presidential personnel nomination because they have not allowed certain people to testify about Benghazi. Is that right?
Yeah, the bottom line is 14 months after the attack, the Congress has never had access to the survivors of Benghazi, and you can't let the executive branch police itself. So I find it just unacceptable that the United States Congress, as part of oversight, doesn't have access to those who were at Benghazi, who survived the attack on the consulate. And the FBI interviews taken 2 days after the attack have never been provided to the Congress, and to me that's unacceptable.
So even someone like Janet Yellen, who's been nominated to be the next chair of the Federal Reserve, you would hold up her nomination, the important work she needs to do in order to try to put pressure on the administration to make these people available?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. And why? Why? Because I just think we can't live in a country where when something bad happens, when there's a national security failure. In the 60 Minutes piece, and Aaron Burnett, the media has done a pretty good job basically of explaining to the American people that the story told by the administration about what happened in Benghazi doesn't have an ounce of truth in it. I mean, this was a pre-planned Al-Qaeda-inspired led terrorist attack, not a protest gone bad. And I find it appalling that the Congress can't talk to the people who survived the attack and be able to interview them independent of the executive branch.
The spokesman for the White House and the State Department, Jay Carney, Jen Psaki, they say they've made unprecedented cooperation with Congress on Benghazi. I'll play a little clip from what Jay Carney said.
Yeah.
That I think it's unfortunate to hold up any nominee or any nomination process. And when it comes to doing so for this reason, I think I've noted the considerable cooperation that the administration has provided on these issues.
Have they provided considerable cooperation?
No. The people who were at Benghazi, who survived the attack, have never been interviewed. One of the people have been interviewed by the Congress. The FBI interviews 48 hours after the attack have never been provided to the Congress. And here's why I think that's important. I don't believe there was ever a protest, and I think the people on the ground told the FBI that they were attacked by a bunch of terrorists, and I don't know how in the world this story started. There was a protest inspired by video gone bad. You know, when we investigated Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib and the fairs in Iraq, I was there with my Democratic colleagues pushing the system to get to the truth about the abuses at Abu Ghraib and about Gitmo, and now the shoe's on the other foot, and it's pretty disappointing. But no, they haven't provided the basics about Benghazi. Do you believe you understand what happened in Benghazi? Can you tell me how the story started that this was a protest gone bad when everybody on the ground in real time reported a terrorist attack?
So have they not made these people available even on a confidential, classified basis before the intelligence committees, for example?
It's my understanding that the survivors, the State Department personnel who survived the consulate attack, one of that group has been interviewed by the House, and the CIA agents at the Annex have not been interviewed by the Intelligence Committee of the House and the Senate. And I think the House and the Senate needs to do that, to have an independent look at what happened in Benghazi. And I want the FBI interviews 48 hours after the attack is probably the best evidence we have of what actually happened in Benghazi.
When you ask for all of this, what do they say to you?
Take a hike. And at the end of the day, can you imagine the shoe on the other foot? Can you imagine if this were the Bush administration and they were refused to make available survivors of a national security debacle to the Congress and would not provide FBI interviews about an Al-Qaeda-inspired attack? What would be happening in this country? This is just an unacceptable way for the executive branch to behave.
When Congressman Darrell Issa wants information from the administration, not getting it, he issues subpoenas. Are you ready to do that? Should you be doing that?
Well, I don't have subpoena power in the minority. All I can do is have what leverage I have. The only question President Obama's ever answered was when we threatened to put Brennan on hold as the CIA chief. I don't like doing this. It's not my nature. But 14 months into this, after the 60-minute story, how can I, in good conscience, go back to South Carolina, talk to the families, and tell them, you've been told all there is to know about Benghazi, when we've never been able to talk to the people who lived through the attack itself? How can I explain to the people in my home state and throughout the country that the story they told us about Benghazi holds water after the 60-minute story?
Lindsey Graham, Republican senator from South Carolina. Senator, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.